Hey, gorgeous. Welcome to Season 2 of the Hormone P.U.Z.Z.L.E Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Kayla Smith, CEO of the Hormone P.U.Z.L.E Society, a women's health hub for fertility, hormones, and the business of coaching, creator of the Hormone P.U.Z.L.E method, an infertility warrior, two-time boy mom, and women's health expert. This podcast is for women struggling with infertility, painful periods, terrible PMS, or really just any symptom of hormone imbalance that they are ready to eliminate for good. Tune in weekly as we interview amazing experts in the fields of women's health, breaking down those hormone walls, nerding out on nutrition, and having way too much fun. Whether you're beginning your journey or you've been struggling for years, we're going to finally help you put those pieces of your hormone puzzle back together so that you can get pregnant and eliminate those pesky symptoms for good. Are you ready? This season is packed with even more expert guests sharing groundbreaking knowledge, giving you that jolt of energy that you so desperately need, sending you lots of virtual hugs, and inspiring you to take your fertility into your own hands and make that baby. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now let's get started on your road to transformation. On today's show, we have Alice Crisci, a cancer survivor, entrepreneur, healthcare media host, and activist. She founded Med Answers to end the spread of healthcare misinformation and speed consumer access to specialty medicine. The company's first mobile app product, Fertility Answers, has a highly engaged user base and social media following, which she has amassed a large and unique data set driving fertility marketing strategies for national brands and R&D companies. She also founded an on-go fertility charity, Fertile Action, 3 weeks into her cancer diagnoses at 31 years old. She co-authored the first fertility preservation bill in the country and went on to lobby for reproductive change on behalf of the California Bank, now Generate Life Sciences, and as a patient advocate at all levels of government. She is the proud mama of a 7-year-old fertility preservation miracle who was a frozen day 2 embryo for 5 years. Wow. This show, we're going to be talking about this amazing app, Fertility Answers, and how it can help you connect with clinicians and get some of your fertility questions answered, and why it's so important to be your own fertility advocate with your doctors, your clinics, your employer, and even your insurance company. Now let's welcome Alice to the show. Hey, Alice, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kayla, for having me.
I am super excited to talk to you today. So tell us
I am too.
Yeah, tell us a little more, kind of how you started working in fertility and with women's health.
Well, I actually landed in reproductive health by way of a cancer diagnosis almost 15 years ago now. And, it's something that came out of left field when I was 31 years old. I found a lump in my left breast, and really within 10 days, I was diagnosed with invasive ductal carcinoma. And even though it was a cancer diagnosis, I was one of the lucky ones that was able to access fertility preservation. And that experience before I began cancer treatment really made me fall in love with reproductive health. And I was stunned by the lack of resources, the lack of education, hearing that there are not enough referrals happening for people in time to do what I did, which was ensure that I could become a mom. I ended up freezing embryos and eggs. I split a cohort, used an anonymous sperm donor. And today I have a healthy 8-year-old son because I was able to access my fertility preservation services all those years ago. He was a frozen day 2 embryo for 5 years.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing.
Yes. And he can break down for you all the biology of embryos and,
Oh, I
and
bet.
genetics and DNA. Since he is a donor conceived child, he knows all about his donor, even though the donor is anonymous. And really we have such a gratitude and appreciation for, the fact that we got to become mother and son, thanks to the fact that we have science to help us get there.
I love that. Oh, what a beautiful story. And so I would love to talk a little more about, you created an app called Fertility Answers. And so tell us a little more about that story. How did that really come to be?
Yeah, I think I drew on my experience really as a cancer patient and a fertility patient or infertility patient. When I was diagnosed, I chose a primary care oncologist and he recommended a treatment plan and I started treatment. But my second opinion oncologist actually disagreed with the type of chemo that I was on. Now I already started. So I already had every horrible side effect that you could possibly imagine. And I had two doctors who didn't agree with each other. And I don't know why, but at the time I had the foresight to ask them to get on a conference call with me so I could hear both of their explanations. And really at the end of the day, what was missing was easy access to second, third, fourth, fifth opinions and really data even for them to get on the same page. So I think, flash forward many years later, and after helping a lot of people on various Facebook groups and kind of seeing women give each other bad medical advice, and everybody was playing doctor, we were either turning to Dr. Google or we were, pretending to be one. And I really just had this epiphany, probably a shower moment of why don't we do this in an app? The clinicians out there connect with each other in social media and they all participate on social media. And patients do too. So why can't we just connect the dots and put everybody in one place so that we can have people fill out a health profile in exchange for asking hundreds of different experts their personal question and potentially get more than one answer and potentially even get clinical consensus around the answer because we have an upvote feature that clinicians can use.
I love that.
Thank you.
So tell us a little more about some misconceptions maybe that there are in the fertility and infertility markets.
Well, there's so many.
Yeah.
You can read any article these days references opinion as though it's fact. And one of the opinions that's been floating around out there in the media, and it's just perpetuated over and over and over again, is that age-related infertility is the most pressing kind of concern. And they blame it in this manner. They say women are waiting longer in life to get married. Therefore, they're waiting longer in life to have children. We do not see that in our data set. Now, mind you, I have an incredible size of data. I have 250 million data points across 65,000 people all across every area of the United States. And what we see is not only are women trying and struggling to conceive in their 20s, they also are actively seeking information about their fertility health in their 20s. So there is a huge misnomer that that's how they say it, right? Like everyone is waiting longer in life to have babies. And they portray the market as though we're all waiting until we're 37
right
to start thinking about having a baby. I mean, we see women, married as young as 18 and 19 years old still. That is a huge part of the fabric of Americana. And we do see a societal trend that unmarried couples are actively trying to conceive. So there is an emphasis more on family than there is on marriage. That is definitely something that we are seeing as a trend. There's also a real need for people to understand that the obesity epidemic has hit the childbearing age hard. And we also see a lot of women who are not properly under kind of nutritional care or getting proper counseling on the connection between weight and ovulation or weight and fertility outcomes. And that is a big frustration too, because we just see these huge gaps in access to care and proper diagnoses. The third that I'll mention is the market does not self-identify as infertile, even when they meet the definition of infertility. So the definition of infertility is a very weak definition for a clinical disease diagnosis. And what's frustrating about that is that if women are under the age of 35 and they've already been struggling to conceive for a year, they, by the CDC and the World Health Organization, are actually diagnosed as infertile. Now, that is not a moment like my cancer moment where somebody called me on the phone and said, I'm sorry to tell you, but I biopsied your tumor and you have breast cancer. What we're lacking in the market is a PCP or family medicine doctor or an OBGYN having that defining moment with someone to say, you meet the definition of infertility. It is lacking a blood test. It's lacking some kind of lab work to prove that, but I have to refer you now to a specialist so that you can get a proper infertility workup and be presented with options. Now, if that's done, a proper workup these days could include microbiome testing. It could include a weight management plan. It could be seeing an obesity specialist. It doesn't have to be seeing an REI, although they have the best diagnostic tools available in the market. So there's a huge gap in understanding of what it means to be infertile. It is not a life sentence. It does not mean that you will never be able to get pregnant all by yourself, but it does mean that you meet the definition of the disease of infertility. And as a medical system, we have to rapidly refer these people, these couples, these individuals to see a specialist. It's not as though my breast specialist wouldn't have referred me to an oncologist once I was diagnosed with breast cancer. It should be the exact same with infertility. And yet even people who've been struggling, Kayla, for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, even women who have had 7 miscarriages, and they still do not say, I'm infertile. They still say, I'm just having trouble conceiving on my own.
Crazy.
It is.
Crazy.
It is.
And that leads me to my next point. You really talk a lot about patients advocating for themselves so they can feel more empowered. So let's talk about that. How do we do that and why is it so important?
Yes, this is something that really so much of our patient engagement toolkit and what we do on our Instagram channel, with Fertility Answers, what we're about is empowering women with the actual words they need to ask for care. Now, it's unfortunate that we all have to be our own best advocates. Yes, that's unfortunate because there's so many things that are broken in the system. I talk a lot about this with Sasha Ati from PCOS Challenge and, and with some of our other advocates because I just feel like she's doing such a great job trying to train people how to talk about yourself. There are a few kind of structural things that we always mention. Bring somebody who can take notes for you. So much of decision making happens outside of the clinician's office, but if you don't gather enough information while you're at the office, then you're going to be turning to Dr. Google to fill in the gaps. Hopefully you'll be turning to my app to ask at least clinicians proper questions or experts proper questions. But most people, what do? They think about something at 2 or 3 in the morning and they're online. Right. Or on social media and in those Facebook groups that I wish would go away. Yeah. And, or at least they could exist for the emotional support that I think that they were initially created for. Right. So part of it is that. Part of it is sort of infrastructure. Like, do you have someone who can take notes for you? What data do you have on yourself? And what data do you need on yourself? Meaning, if you know that you meet the definition of infertility, what could be the potential causes? Are your tubes open? Do you ovulate? Do you have enough follicles in your ovaries to ovulate? Did you check that off the box? Have you tested to see if your fluids match together? There are cervical issues as well, just with cervical mucus, making sure that it is not overly acidic to kill the sperm. And of course, is your uterus clear? Do you have any abnormalities that would make it difficult for an embryo and then testing to look for markers for risk of things like recurrent pregnancy loss or PCOS or some of the other things that we have available to us. So a lot of it comes down to like, what data do you already have and what data can you get? And then in part, the big questions are, well, what does the data mean for you? Because there is not a one size fit all approach. So one of the things that we advocate for is that people stand up for the right to get a personalized treatment plan. What I don't like hearing over and over is women say, well, I don't want to go see a fertility specialist because I don't want to do IVF. What I don't like about that statement is that they think they're going to be sold IVF. Now, I've had IVF doctors say, like, don't send me a patient unless they're going to be IVF. I don't work with those doctors. These docs have the best diagnostic tools at their fingertips. They have the best imaging technology. They have the best analysis, because this is what they do all day, every day, is deal with people who are infertile. So I want our patients to go to them to get the full workup. And the good IVF doctors are not actually going to sell them IVF. They'll say, you could do a weight management program, or, IUI with or without medication. You could do IVF. You could do some of these non-invasive options. You could try newer techniques like InvoCell. Maybe we need to do a reproductive surgery. Maybe there is a microbiome solution out there. So there is a suite of options available. And if the market blocks their own access of it by thinking, well, I don't want to be sold IVF, then let's help you find a clinic who will help you get to the root of what is going on. We work with an amazing naturopathic doctor who specializes in fertility. That could be a path forward as well. We work with an environmental toxin testing company. You could find out that there's a source of an environmental toxin that is an endocrine disruptor that is, wreaking havoc on your hormone balance. There could be simple solutions, but if you don't start with the hypothesis of the diagnosis, I'm infertile, then women will spend endless years trying supplements and teas and this and that and optimization and, eating pineapple core to, until they have canker sores in their mouth, and not actually get to the root of what's causing that diagnosis. I need everybody to understand that it is not a life sentence. Being infertile now doesn't mean that you have to be infertile forever.
Exactly. Amen to that. And so talk to me a little more about, what can patients start to do to really start making changes and make this change? And the same with clinicians, what do we need to do to all work together to affect this change?
So I think that that's a great question. If we have an access issue in this country, in the sense, I live in a rural part of the country and I have to drive an hour for same day labs. So,
oh my goodness.
Exactly. And so structurally, there are a lot of things that a lot of progressive companies that are working on that. We work with U.V.Z.L.E, who has basically an at-home lab. And, they have estradiol coming out. And so pretty soon I won't have to drive an hour to get an estradiol level or a progesterone level. And it's something that they're piloting with, I think, about 70 different clinics across the country. That'll be a game changer, for people like me who live far from a lab or even far from a fertility specialist. So some of these data points that I'm advocating for, you can get done at home. There's a lot of them that you can get with at-home kits. Now, we need insurance to start covering these. So, some changes are, if you work for an employer who's not covering fertility testing, ask your employer to start covering fertility testing. If you work for a small business who uses a PEO provider, ask them to switch to JustWorks, because JustWorks has all kinds of plans that cover fertility testing and treatment. Fertility testing being covered by insurance is a really critical aspect. The movement has long since been focused on covering testing. The movement has long since been focused on covering treatment. What I want to see is consults and testing being covered unilaterally. It has to be something that the ACA says, just like a pap smear every 2 years, we're going to cover this type of testing because it's a recognized disease. And if people aren't getting that proper diagnosis, they're not going to seek all their options, and they're not going to seek those options early enough. Now, for women listening to this, go to your OBGYN. Say, I want a day 3 lab workup. I want to know my AMH. I want to know how many follicles I have left in my ovaries based on that AMH level. I want to do a day 3 FSH. I want to know my LH. I also really think it's important that women know which tools to use based on their health condition. Meaning, one of the reasons we partnered with U.V.Z.L.E is because they measure LH. One of the reasons we partner with U.V.Z.L.E is because they measure LH and progesterone on a quantitative level. So women with PCOS who have LH surges all over the month, they need to really be looking at both markers, LH and progesterone, to know if they released an egg. And you don't have a spike in progesterone unless you release an egg. So knowing that there are ovulation predictors and then ovulation confirmers is one of those things that you can advocate for yourself. You can look those up. You can save up for them. You can buy them. You can make a payment plan for them. And I think that, the other big thing is like finding that doctor that you really feel like is giving you an open platform to do as much testing as you want to do at their level without then going to a fertility specialist. So that means doing an HSG, making sure your tubes are open, and finding an OBGYN who can do that as well. But you got to be able to tick all the boxes at the clinic that you're already with. And if you don't feel like your OBGYN is listening to you, I recommend not being with a PCP or a family medicine doctor. I recommend at least being with an OBGYN, because what I see in the market is more testing is available through OBGYN clinics than at the PCP level, and more treatments are available at the OBGYN level. So, that really is important to me, is that you're with a doctor who you feel like is hearing you, that you feel comfortable talking to. And if you're not with one, then it's time to look for a better fit for you.
Exactly. And I couldn't agree more with the testing. I find it's so very, very important. And we do a lot of that here at the Hormone P.U.Z.Z.L.E Society. We've added so many more at-home testing options with food sensitivity and, gut testing and different hormone tests. So that's so, so very important. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And I completely agree too that, I don't understand why insurance isn't paying for more of these testing. Like, let's figure out exactly what's going on and get to that root. And then as a clinician, we can help to fix that. So yeah, so very important.
Well, absolutely. Yes. Especially when, a lot of these conditions that can lead to infertility and go undiagnosed for years, like PCOS, like endometriosis, like fibroids. These are lifelong conditions, and it is for women who deal with chronic pain from endometriosis, for women who, they're finding endometriosis lesions in your brain. This is a long-term inflammatory condition that needs to be treated both, interventionally with at-home lifestyle changes, but also clinically. And likewise with PCOS, it's a metabolic syndrome. And, women have comorbidities with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, comorbidities with potentially obesity in the US, comorbidities with high cholesterol, insulin resistance. Up to 70% of women who have PCOS will end up insulin resistant and eventually go on to type 2 diabetes. A lot of those high risk conditions can be controlled or at least more effectively managed with lifestyle changes and diet and exercise. But if you don't know you have it, then you're a bit of a sitting duck.
Exactly.
And we tend to overly focus on someone's ability to have a baby. But what about, heading into menopause? And what about the high risk, after menopause and even in puberty with not having great, diagnostic tools for these conditions? So the more we talk about the red flags, the more we talk about the symptoms, the more we talk about the type of lab work, that people need done, then I feel like the more we will be able to rapidly diagnose these things.
And the other piece of that too that just drives me insane is, okay, so say we do get the diagnosis, we do, we have PCOS or endo or, one of these diagnoses and we're told, kind of focus on some lifestyle changes with nutrition and exercise and everything you just mentioned. And then we want to get support around that. We want to get someone to help us, but insurance won't pay for it. And our finances don't allow us, so.
And I'm not sure if we're even captured in the chronic disease category because PCOS is not even recognized by the NIH right now.
Crazy.
And it's insane because it impacts more than 5 million women. Yeah. But it takes an act of Congress to get it recognized by the NIH, which is something that Sasha Ate is focused on at PCOS Challenge. And that's infuriating because these are chronic diseases. We know that there is a 40 to 60% increase out of pocket healthcare spend for people who have one or more chronic disease. And a lot of women in our category have more than one chronic disease. We have women who have PCOS, endo, and fibroids.
Exactly. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I could get on the soapbox all day.
Me too. I feel like I do.
Yes, me too. So we do have to take a short break to hear a word from our sponsors, but we're going to come back in. We're going to dive into some practical tips. I want to learn a little bit more about the app and maybe some top questions you hear on there. And so we'll do that all when we come back. Hey y'all, it's Coach Kayla here. I hope you are loving this episode as much as I am. We will be back in just a minute, but first, a word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Hormone P.U.Z.Z.L.E Society, a women's health hub for fertility, hormones, and the business of coaching. Whether you're struggling to get pregnant with pesky hormone symptoms, or you're working to build a career in the fertility and women's health space, we have you covered. Visit our website at www.coachkayla.com to learn more on how we can help you. Text the keyword fertility to 615-257-8855 for your free fertility meal plan. Hey, Alice, welcome back.
Thanks, Kayla.
So let's talk about your app some more. Tell me maybe a couple of questions that you hear pretty regularly on there, and let's kind of answer some of those for our audience.
Oh my goodness. That is a great question in and of itself, because the unique thing about the Fertility Answers app and our community on Instagram is the personalized nature of the questions. So what I mean by that is there's about 16,000 questions that have been asked on the app, and probably just as many on our Instagram lives that we host. And they are so incredibly detailed. So, in one, I think we're getting a lot of questions around COVID vaccine and disruption to period and clearing up the misconception that it leads to infertility. It does not. We have definitive data that does not lead to infertility. Even if it disrupts 1 month of a cycle, it is not a permanent disruption. So, we are getting a lot of those types of questions. But here's for instance, we have a user this morning who reported what her FSH, estradiol, and AMH levels were. And she wanted to know, because she didn't understand what these labs are, if it was a sign of DOR, diminished ovarian reserve. Her AMH was a 1.65. And so the good news is that no, it's not. And she had two answers about that. One of the doctors looked at her age and said, the one thing for you to pay attention to is your age and that number. So your AMH is actually quite good, but it doesn't pick up a predictor of egg quality. And at the age of 39, she might want to start considering her options for having a baby so that she reduces her risks for miscarriage or for chromosomal abnormalities. See, so when you couple the question with health data like age and other diagnoses, etc., then the clinicians who are answering can answer with such relevance. But another woman asked about her lining on cycle day 4 because she's going through a cycle and getting ready for a transfer. And this is, very personalized type of question. Other women, we have about 13 different categories of questions that women can ask in. So the 3 most popular categories are diagnostics and testing, treatment planning, and fertility medication. But we run the gamut of diet and lifestyle, even medical tourism, egg quality itself, oncofertility, and you name it, and you can ask a question in it. So it's a very personalized approach, very personalized.
I love that. So can you walk us through a little bit more about, how to use it? Say we want to use the app. Is it free for users? And then kind of how does that work?
Yeah. So our commitment is that it's free for users forever. There is a rush fee if someone needs an answer within an hour. And the reason we charge a rush fee is because all of our clinicians and experts who are answering volunteer. So they are not compensated. And so just for the consumers to know, if I'm expecting a volunteer to be able to answer, really quickly with an urgent matter, then we charge just $20 for that. The rest of the questions are free. Now, we don't commit to every question being answered within 24 hours because we work with volunteers, but 75% of them are answered within 24 hours. So we typically recommend being in touch with us if it's taking longer than a week. And in that case, people can just respond to the text message with our free fertility navigators / fertility advocates, because those advocates will then text some of our providers and say, hey, we have a user who hasn't gotten their question answered yet. And then we'll just supply the answer to them. The other thing that we do with the health data itself, though, when the more detailed that our users fill out their health profile, the more personalized the app experience. So we have handpicked products, services, and clinicians, doctors, specialists, but a variety of different types of specialists that we then match based on your health data to you. So for instance, if someone meets the criteria for a specific ovulation kit because they have PCOS, we will only match you to that ovulation kit because it's clinically validated for your condition. We just want to take a little bit of the guesswork out of decision making for our patient. Likewise, if someone is in a specific area looking for reduced fee IVF, we will make sure that we promote them, match them with the reduced fee. We also have a pilot where we allow people to do a paid Q&A with some of our fertility nurses and fertility doctors. So this is something where some people are not ready for a full consult. So we just match them with an expert that they can ask questions directly of for 15 minutes. And that has a small price point as well. That's only $40. So that's really how we go about doing it. It is, the more comprehensive people get with their health profile, then the faster that we can find them the right solution.
I love that. And is this something too where we can look at past questions? Say we have a question others have, so we can kind of look at the history there.
Yes, definitely personalize your experience by picking the categories that you want to follow. Certainly if someone isn't going to use an egg or a sperm donor, they don't want to follow those categories, but most people are following diagnostics and testing, treatment planning, and fertility medication. Diet and lifestyle is a big one. Egg quality is a big one. And miscarriage, sadly, is a big one because of how many of us have been affected by miscarriage. Mm-hmm. So we recommend people, we take you through an onboarding experience when you hop on the app, super fast and easy to register. We ask you some questions so that we in the back end are already tailoring your feed so that when you search through the questions, and you can use our search bar or just read through the questions in your feed, then we know that it's relevant to you.
Gotcha. Perfect. And where is this app available? Is it on Apple and Android?
It is on both. Yes, it is on Apple and Android. Free download.
I love it. Perfect. Well, oh my
and
goodness.
Fertility Answers is one word.
Gotcha.
One word. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I love it. I know this is helping so many people, and I know my audience is just going to love to get involved with this. So tell us more about where we can find you, where we can learn even more about the app.
I think the best thing to do is connect with us on Instagram. We have a burgeoning community there, about 31,000 followers, but the same type of experts who answer the questions in our app. I also interview them like you do on your podcast. But the unique thing is that we allow the public to write in their questions. And so really it's an Ask Me Anything format. We run those every single week on Instagram with people who have been practicing for years, for potentially decades. We have a prominent OBGYN named Dr. Sherry, who has multiple books out and a TV show on the Ellen Network. We work with Serena Chen, who is a fertility specialist out of New Jersey, who's been practicing for more decades than she probably wants me to share. We also have Dr. Lucky Sekon from RMA New York, and Dr. Raquel, who is our naturopathic fertility specialist, who is also a medical director for Carrot. And we bring on all kinds of experts on our Instagram channel so people can get their questions answered in writing on the app, live in a verbal format on Instagram, or privately in a paid Q&A with one of our experts.
I love that. Well, Alice, it's been amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Any final thoughts before we close out?
The final thoughts. I feel really honored to serve the world in this way. And, my ultimate mission and vision is just to serve those who want to be a parent and just help them live the life that they imagined in the most efficient way possible. So I'm just grateful to you, Kayla, for hosting this podcast and for bringing me on and giving me a chance to spread the word.
Yes. Thank you again so much for being here. It's been an honor to have you on. So thank you.
You're welcome, Kayla. Thank you.
And thank you, ladies, for listening to the Hormone Puzzle Podcast. Until next time, bye. Hey, hang on just 1 second before you go. I want to make sure that you are aware of all of the amazing free resources that I have for you on my website at CoachKayla.com. From a fertility meal plan, a cycle syncing quick start guide, a holistic healing cookbook, as well as master classes, blog posts by me and some amazing experts in the fields of fertility, hormones, and nutrition. So many wonderful resources that will help you on your journey. And I wish there had been something like this when I was going through my 2 years of infertility, but there just wasn't. And so that's why I decided to create all of this for you. So make sure that you go and check it out and you take advantage of this plethora of support that I have provided for you. And spoiler alert, these were some of the same tricks and the same foods that I used to get myself pregnant, not once, but twice, even after my doctors said that I couldn't. So I know that these things work. Make sure you take advantage of that. And I cannot wait for you to be my next success story. So thanks, love. See you soon. Thanks for tuning in today to the Hormone Puzzle Podcast. Check out the show notes for today's episode at CoachKayla.com. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and leave a review. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next week.